The Spin-off Podcast Network. Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tāmaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today.
The Fold is brought to you by O Media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa. No mai hoki mai ki a The Fold, e mihi nei, ko Duncan tōku ingoa. My guest this week on The Fold is Justin Flitter, who is a digital marketer, but also the head of AI New Zealand, which is a group that he founded to kind of get the AI companies and people working in AI together to just to discuss the subject that he and they are very passionate about. It was founded in 2016, so well ahead of the most recent kind of shock and awe waves of generative AI, the likes of Dall-E 2 and ChatGPT. So I thought he'd be a great person to get onto The Fold and to discuss, basically following on from last week's mini monopod, my summer, the intervening week since that was recorded, I didn't stop thinking about ChatGPT for very long. And I think it is a really, really seismic event. What we were trying to find a comparison to make with it, and Justin reached for electricity, that's a high bar. Electricity, indoor plumbing, these are the big ones. And we won't know whether that's right or wrong yet for a while, but it does feel like this wave of AI is just fundamentally different, and it's one that it is very much incumbent upon any of us working in the media, but also anywhere, to think really hard about how we can have it impact our businesses. I mean, it will impact them. It's whether it's a positive impact that we choose, or whether it's a competitor or so just some other path that it comes in, and we don't get to make the decision about how it touches us. And I mean that it's actually much more broader than business. It's any organisation, any individual. I think it's worth thinking about what you do and how this new wave of generative AI could impact you and your work and your play in a positive way. So that's basically the meat of what this conversation's about. It's about the state of artificial intelligence in New Zealand, about these new waves of generative AI, and more to the point about how us who are not in the industry, who aren't kind of deeply engaged with the forefront of the technology, should think about it and engage with it. I think it's a good way to start the year. Got a sort of vaguely refreshed brain. Let's do something with that space. So this is Justin Flitter from AI New Zealand on The Fold. Tēnā koe, Justin, and welcome to The Fold.
Hi, it's not awesome to be here. We've got a great chat coming up.
I hope so. So, and I really appreciate you making time at this a period of the year when most people I've asked to be on the Fold lately, I've received automated responses telling me not for weeks. But I'm really glad, because it's just this topic. The last episode of The Fold I did was talking about ChatGPT and its implications, and I think you're very well qualified with your role to kind of run through that in a broader sense. So, but I wonder if you could start, Justin, just by basically explaining what AI is in a kind of shorthand way.
Start off with the tough ones, eh? So artificial intelligence has been around for many decades, since the 1950s, from Dartmouth School, Alan Turing and the Turing test and those sorts of things. So it's nothing new. What's changed is compute power, processing power, semiconductors, bandwidth, and And today, artificial intelligence is effectively the ability to program machines to do tasks that usually only humans would be able to do.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And, you know, I think that feel like AI has been one of those terms that's been out there in the ether. We've known that we are interacting, but it's always been a bit abstracted. It's sort of behind another thing that we're doing. And the big change that was wrought in the back half of 2022 was the rise of generative AI. First in terms of imagery, and then very late in the year, the launch of ChatGPT, which, you know, just kaleidoscopically impressive text-based generative program. Well, you know, like for someone who's been involved in and interested in the scene for some years, you know, were you sort of surprised by these leaps? They felt like huge leaps, but had they been kind of in the pipe for a while?
Well, I think there are many people across all industries who are absolutely staggered by the quality of ChatGPT, and it's not even transformational. It's like when the calculator came to be. It's a radical shift in how we think and use artificial intelligence.
So what is AI New Zealand, and how did you come to be involved in that?
Yeah, so I'm a tech marketer, a B2B marketing strategist. I've worked with a lot of software as a service and professional services companies kind of growing across New Zealand, US, UK, around the world. And in 2016, one of the companies I was working with, their sister company, was an AI company, a natural language processing development company with New Zealand funders in the UK. And so I became really curious around how artificial intelligence was going to impact my world as a marketer, and specifically around search. So how people search for products or services. And it was at a time where things like Siri and Alexa were starting to, products were starting to exist. And so you could kind of ask them questions around or order products and buy things. And so how people search, it wasn't just a keyword search, it became a key phrase. And so I was asking around, should we be creating content or writing blog posts and things like that in a more conversational tone that might be better utilised by these tools? And so I went to a whole lot of vendor events and found a whole lot of other people and professional services like me trying to understand what artificial intelligence is and whether they could use it and how they might use it in their business. And so I started the AI show, which was a monthly event we ran for many years, through to pretty much when COVID started. And we were getting 200 to 300 people a month coming along. We ran a couple of big international conferences called AI Day. But our predominant mission is to help business people understand artificial intelligence and showcase some of the companies that are building AI-powered products and services in New Zealand and expose them to some of the cool stuff coming out around the world. So yeah, super exciting space. I've learned a hell of a lot, and we've got today we've got a huge community and a massive industry developing around artificial intelligence, and some of the best brains in the world, in the AI world, are New Zealanders, which is it's really exciting.
So I actually want to dwell on its impact on businesses outside of AI. I think that's kind of one of the sort of signal challenges is how to correctly process what this is, and then how to fold it into what you're doing in a way that, is the aspirational version of what it can be, as opposed to the doomsday version. And there'll be a lot of both of those things floating around in people's minds. But I wondered if you could, but before we get to that, just talk about maybe pick a couple of the New Zealand businesses operating in this sphere, Because it's easy to imagine that when something as vast as OpenAI and with people with the resources of Microsoft and Google are in the space, it's like good luck. But there do seem to be some New Zealand companies that have taken specific parts or ideas and been able to create some really interesting work. So maybe just pick a couple of those that you found most sort of interesting in the space.
Look, go and have a look at what Will Hewitt's doing with HeartLab. Completely changing the way cardiologists collect imagery, use artificial intelligence to spot defects, to do reporting. It's astonishing platform. You can look at Orbica AI in Christchurch, so geodata. What Kurt and the team doing down there is just incredibly fascinating. Again, just massive amounts of data processing. And then there's little companies, growing companies like Fruitometry, which their technology and development started from people that were working in Team New Zealand a couple of tours ago. And they've built effectively a supercomputer in their garage that's doing all of the processing on hand. They've got 4x4s that are running around kiwi fruit orchards with cameras and laptops collecting data, and they're able to scan the crops and help growers predict what their yield's going to be, how much fertilizer to use, what crops are diseased and need cutting. So the efficiency gain and the productivity gain that companies like that get from deploying these AI-powered solutions is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because, I think it's a really good answer to the first part of my question about how you can compete with these sort of giants of technology, is that they're naturally very mass, and the businesses are going to be in really smartly deployed niche applications, but that niche can still be $1 billion plus business. The reason that we're sort of here, the thing that's been kind of, I was banned multiple times unsuccessfully, but there was a very serious attempt to ban me from talking about this by my wife over the summer break. We ended up, while we were camping, having this basically a corner underneath a gazebo, which is when you want to talk about ChatGPT, you have to go over there, you disgusting freaks. Nonetheless, it really, I'd spent some time there because it's so fascinating. And ChatGPT...
Well, ChatGPT will have a conversation with you about whatever you want.
Maybe I should just be only allowed to talk to ChatGPT about ChatGPT.
It's the world's biggest Ask Me Anything platform.
So when that was the thing, and maybe it's because I'm a writer and the initial, sort of, it's had multiple layered kind of booms of people realizing what it can do. But I think that interface, because it was, it was just basically a cursor blinking in a box like we've been looking at for 30 years, and yet the way that it responded to whatever you typed into there was just wholly different to anything we'd experienced, in a way that even the likes of Dall-E 2, felt kind of small by comparison. What is it about that generative AI and ChatGPT, which, because it can reach in everything from coding to storylining to research, there's just so much it can do. What is it about that you think has really kind of caught people's minds?
Yeah, so ChatGPT it's a language generation model developed by OpenAI. So it's capable of generating super convincing human-like text. It can write software code, which means it can potentially write malware code. You can literally ask it anything. Yesterday I asked it, can you give me instructions to change the oil filter in my car? And it came back with a 15-point step-by-step instruction. Now, if I ask Siri the same question, it's just going to send me to a Google link. So there's a super powerful application. If you flick that on to a voice-enabled device, you can then effectively have a step-by-step process. While you're underneath the car, it's actually doing that. It's going to be able to say, now do this, and then this, and then this. So that's fundamentally shifts. There's a couple of key things that we need to put caveats on ChatGPT. It's not connected to the internet. The ChatGPT knowledge base finishes in November 2021. So anything published in the world since then doesn't exist as part of its knowledge base. And it is consistently pulling up errors. It'll come back with answers that are factually incorrect or exaggerated. So it's not perfect, but this is an example of what machine learning is. By asking these questions and by OpenAI doing this project and putting it out into the open for people to use, means that the feedback it's getting, was this answer any good, and their humans reviewing some of the questions is going to mean it's going to get better and better and better and better. So those feedback loops are incredibly important. So, we've got schools in New Zealand and around the country, around the world now, who are going to start doing more paper-based exams. So technology influences like OpenAI and ChatGPT can't be used as part of those assessments. We're already seeing tools coming out which say that that can spot text that's written by generative AI, which is going to become incredibly difficult to do because even today ChatGPT is it reads like you and I would talk.
Yeah, well, it's almost. I mean, New York City just banned its use in homework. I think this morning, it almost feels like part of the compact OpenAI needs to make with society is that anything that's created by it can be accessed by educators or anyone else who needs to sort of test to what extent a human made it as a way of testing it. But yeah, which is interesting because the ultimate, the skill of being able to get the right prompt and get a result that's relevant almost feels like a more future-facing skill for humans to have in some respects.
But you've got to ask the right question.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the other thing to add in here is you're going to get broad answers. It's not going to come back with contextually relevant, time-relevant perspectives. It's not going to come back with a highly valuable opinion on something. It's going to give you a generalization of all the stuff it can surface within its knowledge base on that particular topic. So, the skill here and the changes in content marketing for companies is going to be writing much less of this, broad brand messaging around the future of the Futureverse or the future of Meta or something like that, or the future of AI, and getting down to highly opinionated, specific, and highly relevant messaging that's so specifically targeted to your audience. So it's not a broad brush. It's going to be, that thought leadership is going to become even more important because people are going to be able to see through that's a generalist piece of content versus this is something that your CEO or that someone in your business has, really well researched and really knows their stuff is going to come through.
Yeah, it feels like it can do a convincing facsimile of what is fairly medium to okay copywriting in most instances. But like like for example, a whole bunch of as was inevitable, as soon as it came out, a whole bunch of columnists wrote columns using some part of them with AI. It was never the interesting part, but obviously, and I think that's the. So
it can give you the background, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to be like, in 100 words, give me the background story to Barack Obama. Right? It's going to give you some context around that.
Which is also something that, is easily obtainable in a lot of different ways. I think that sense of figuring out how to use it in ways that are creative, that will become a valuable skill, and that's not something that everyone will be able to do. Well, one thing I wanted to talk about is, I think this has implications so vast that there are very few jobs or industries that shouldn't be taking it really seriously, and I want to talk a bit about that. But the audience for The Fold is largely people who work in different aspects of media. There is, I haven't spoken to too many people, but it feels like there is a natural split between people who are curious about it and open to it, and people who find the whole thing really scary. Because which you can understand, because there are elements of what it can do that can feel like, they might take some of your job, potentially all of your job, especially if this thing keeps moving. I mean, as you say, it stops in November 2021. If it was plugged into the live internet, it becomes quite a different animal again. What would you say is for people in media and marketing is if it's not in media, it's right next to it. So you'll obviously have some. Have thought about this a bit. Is like, what is the right way for those who haven't been paying attention and are suddenly seeing this thing on their doorstep? What's the right way for them to think about it?
Your job's not going to be taken over by a machine. It's going to be taken over by a human using a machine. So,
might as well be you.
People who, in any role, whatever skill set or job that you're in, start researching and start experimenting and playing around with ChatGPT, because the more you understand how this technology works and see the opportunities to leverage it within your work, the more competitive you're going to be, the more productive and effective and efficient you're going to be, the more time you'll win back to invest in creativity and thought and providing empathy and creativity, all the things that humans are still the best at, and let the machines do the parts of the jobs that they can do in a fraction of a second versus taking you half a day.
Yeah, it does feel like it's the best use of it, like almost thinking about the things that are most repetitious and drudge-like of your current role, and try them first, because they're almost the most likely to be the things that the AI can do very well, and that, as you say, being able to port that time into something that brings you more joy is very real.
I mean, no matter how much AI we have in the world, you still need humans to execute. At the moment, it's not sentient. It doesn't operate on its own. It only operates because a human asks it to do something.
So, in terms of one thing that I think has become manifest over the last sort of 20, 30 years is that technology always outpaces policy, and that whenever there is a kind of a regulatory vacuum where policy did not imagine something certainly like this, we get behind. And economies develop, and they're very hard to kind of regulate and post. This is something, and I'm not imagining that this government or many governments are going to be able to get out ahead of it. But are there any kind of policy issues here? For example, with Dall-E 2, a lot of artists on whose work it was on some level trained, I sort of feel like that was done without consent. They consented for their images to be viewed. They didn't give consent for them to be processed, and I can kind of understand that perspective. Do you think there is a policy response here, or is it, kind of immaterial whether it's a machine or a human who's reading and responding to your work?
There's a myriad of complex issues unraveling here. We've got potential copyright infringement issues. We've got bias and discriminatory outputs coming up. We've got potential security risks. including very convincing phishing attacks and all sorts of things that could be. So the weaponization of ChatGPT is just around the corner, right? And there is no government in the world that's going to run fast enough to be able to protect some of this, and it's going to happen very, very quickly. And how we manage that, I guess, is up to us as a population to manage and to be aware of. There are a lot of countries around the world, US, Canada, UK, France, who have some very well established policies that deeply understand the implications of artificial intelligence. The AI Forum in New Zealand and MB and other organisations have been doing some fantastic work developing national AI strategy and policy and frameworks around that, which are heading us in the right direction. We've got some fantastic people working on solving this for New Zealand and incorporating issues and understanding around Māori and tikanga and how we need to be bringing in those attributes to New Zealand and what that means from a legislative and policy process for us is really complex, and there's a lot of work that's going on behind that, which is good. But yeah, we're running uphill. And it's getting steeper and steeper every day to try and keep up with this technology.
The Fold is brought to you by O Media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa, with over 4,000 out-of-home advertising sites nationwide across both street furniture and retail centres. I'm super grateful to O Media for enabling us to make unmissable connections with Kiwis.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You might say all kinds of stuff when things go wrong, but these are the words you really need to remember. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They've got options to fit your unique insurance needs, meaning you can talk to your agent to choose the coverage you need, have coverage options to protect the things you value most, file a claim right on the State Farm mobile app, and even reach a real person when you need to talk to someone. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Spring is a time of renewal, so why not refresh your home with a little help from Blinds.com? Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for custom window treatments. There's no pushy salespeople in your home or inflated showroom prices. Free samples, free shipping, and our 100% satisfaction guarantee can put the spring back into your step and into your home, too. Shop Blinds.com now and save up to 45%. Up to 45% off at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So, I've got a friend, my cousin actually, who basically lives in Berlin and has been texting me kind of fairly consistently over the holidays, with things that he's figured out that it's able to do and his thoughts about how it applies to work. And one of the things that he's convinced of is that there's basically a new role that almost any kind of organisation needs to have access to, that is a kind of like a chief prompt officer almost. Like you figure out the name, but basically someone within the business or organisation more broadly that has a sense of how to kind of ChatGPT whisper and can get even those, because you're in any organisation, there's always a mix of people who are really open to new technology and those who are sort of indifferent or fearful of it. But finding someone who can, create a sort of unlocks for different aspects of an organisation. Do you think that it will be sort of, whether it's a new consultant class or a new job type within an organisation, or is it more a sort of horizontal thing where someone needs to kind of force a level of, in the same way that they might have with email back in the day, that you've just got to start to think about how you can use generative AI within your whatever the realm that you operate in is?
I think if you're a business analyst today working in any decent sized organisation and you're challenged with understanding business process and trying to drive process efficiency, you better have a strong understanding of how machine learning and business process automation and tools like ChatGPT work, because you're going to need them to achieve those goals. Across other organisations, other companies, I think what we've seen with other emerging tech and social and digital over the last few years is someone in the organisation, no matter what their role, is the one that's passionate and curious and adventurous and goes, I'm just going to muck around and play with this. And then they become the person who others look to and go, hey, how could we do this? They'll see the opportunities. They'll be able to apply that back. So there is absolutely an opportunity for someone to step up to create a new role. It might be, whatever that happens to be. Might not be the CTO, but it's certainly going to be someone that deeply understands the processes within that organisation. If you're a CFO, and certainly some of the CFOs I work with have long conversations around how artificial intelligence is going to impact product development, the marketing world, their world, and how we might look at they might look at using different aspects of it. So, CFOs by nature are passionate about creating business efficiency and effectiveness to improve the bottom line and profit margins and those sorts of things. So it's pretty natural for those kind of individuals to be spending a lot of time researching artificial intelligence.
So there's just to kind of return to OpenAI. I've read like Ben Thompson, who authors the Stratechery newsletter, and in other places there's been references to it. This idea that Google, which has always been known as an AI powerhouse, for use within its search products and various other elements, that it actually has something that's like ChatGPT, potentially even significantly more impressive in terms of what it can do, but that because it's got, it's the innovator's dilemma, right? That because it's got this phenomenally profitable and successful search product over here, and it can't necessarily, there's not an obvious way beyond charging per use kind of thing with ChatGPT to monetize it in the same way that the sort of intention signaling of Google search remains just an incredible, profound profit machine. Do you think that sort of, that in trying to protect its kind of core revenue streams, that there's a chance that something like a ChatGPT might rise up and eventually challenge a product and company which has felt basically indomitable for a long time now?
Well, Microsoft invested $1 billion in OpenAI some time ago, and the people that know, and the rumour mill is spinning out that they're in talks to buy 49 and 50% of OpenAI for $10 billion or something like that. Which in all likelihood is going to put ChatGPT into Microsoft hands, into Office 365. It's going to open it up to being able to have voice-enabled queries around, what was our last strategy, or who had a meeting with this customer last. Effectively everything that sits within your SharePoint could be searchable within it. It'll be integrated. It could be integrated into Bing search, which and there's already U.com, which has a Safari extension, which would allow you to search using incorporating ChatGPT into the search results, which is really quite interesting. There's a whole bunch of different tools that will come out once the API is opened up more, that will monetize, and I guess they can quite easily throttle API access And at the moment, it's just open to the public, so there's no reason why they couldn't shut that off, and it would just become paid API access. Massive opportunities to monetize a platform like that. Potentially a Google search killer. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty profound, right, given the scale of that and the reliance on it. You're a digital marketer. Search is still pretty much the first stop, right?
If you can just imagine ChatGPT that's connected to the internet in real time, it's got the whole world's brain. It's got like everything we collectively know and have published on the internet is potentially within its knowledge base. Like, your brain explodes just thinking about the volume of data that could be sitting inside those data centers, being able to process it within a fraction of a second to be able to serve you up a 1,500-word essay on anything you want.
Yeah, but also all the things that are, the internet is wrong so frequently, and it's got no ability to kind of fact check it. So that's the, but...
So there are fact checkers. There are fact checkers, and there are tools out there that are doing it. But the thing where you have search engines is search engines you build credibility. Search engines have algorithms which know which content is most popular, how much dwell time you spend on those sites, and which ones are most referenced. And so they have a credibility score against content, which is can be integrated into that as well. So,
none of these things feel unsolvable, right? Like what they feel like, these are little hurdles along the way. But given the scale of the achievement to this point, you would never bet against anyone being able to get this thing to sort of Wikipedia-like levels of accuracy.
I mean, all it's got to do is find 100 articles that kind of say same or slightly similar things to what you're asking, and something that's an outlier perspective to that is going to be deemed incorrect, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of, over the last few years, there were these huge leaps that we went through with broadband, with the cloud, with the debut of the iPhone, that they felt kind of, like that they changed the nature of the way that we interacted with technology, changed the nature of the possible. They're all kind of old now, and while we've had a bunch of kind of mini revolutions along the way, this feels different. And over the past couple of years, between the metaverse and with Web3, there's been a lot of talk in a kind of a vaporware sense, and it's more the idea of this thing than the actual thing itself, whereas this is the thing itself. Do you feel like this is... on a scale of impact? When you mentioned the calculator before, it feels almost more profound than that to me. In terms of what are the kind of superlatives or comparisons that you reach for with it?
It's the new electricity, right? It's going to drive and be woven into every aspect of everything that we do, and AI already is. The genie's out of the bottle; we can't put it back. So, it's going to become more immersive, more integrated. We're seeing, you mentioned, we had Google Glasses, right? So now you've got Google Glasses that are fully augmented. You've got QR codes on the side of the building. They're going to strip away the exterior so you can only see the piping or the electrical. And then you're going to be able to interrogate it. So you're going to be able to ask it, what was the last piece of work done on this building, and who did it, and was it certified? And that's where technology sitting behind something like ChatGPT is going to make the work that we do and the things that we need to exist far more faster, efficient, and effective. And that should free us up to be more creative, have more time. I mean, everyone says this, technology revolutions are going to, mean that we can spend more time on the beach and more time with our families and all that kind of stuff. It's a load of rubbish, right? Humans we just fill our days with more and more stuff, and we get busier and busier and busier. So it's not going to necessarily mean you can spend more time with your family or not working. It's just going to mean you're going to be more productive and efficient, and we're going to be able to move things further, faster, better, more effectively.
Amazing. Hey, thanks so much for coming up, Justin. It's it's a lot, but it feels really good to be thinking about it and hopefully the right way. And really appreciate you coming on The Fold.
The Fold is brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network. It's hosted by Duncan Grieve, with production by Tiahe Butler and Samuel Robinson. Series production is by Jane Yee.
That was The Fold, brought to you by our partners at oOh!media, making brands unmissable and public spaces better across Aotearoa. Huge thanks to oOh!media for sponsoring this episode of The Fold and enabling us to make unmissable connections with Kiwis.
Kia ora e te iwi, Tiahe Butler here, podcast manager at The Spin-Off. If you enjoy listening to our podcasts, consider supporting our mahi by signing up to become a Spin-Off member at thespinoff.co.nz/donate. The Spin-Off Podcast Network.